The need for educated, trained, and skilled individuals to enter the woodworking industry has never been stronger than it is today. FDMC has been following and supporting several key efforts to satisfy this need for manufacturers. We were pleased to have an opportunity to interview the two individuals responsible for introducing the industry's newest education and training program for high school students in Peyton, Colorado. Dean Madsen is the director of the program, and Tim Kistler is the superintendent of the Peyton School District, a small community just outside of Colorado Springs. Here's what they had to say about the Peyton Woods Manufacturing Program.
Well, my name is Dean Madsen, and I'm an educator, and my background is corporate business, sales and marketing primarily. I owned a small cabinet manufacturing company, and but it was successful enough to put my girls through college, and it provided I got to really do what I really enjoy doing, and I taught a lot of employees, and I guess some of my teaching parts that I enjoyed was, when you're a sales manager, you're teaching lots of employees, salespeople to know how to communicate in the marketplace. And then the business background that I had was, very eye-opening, and it was a struggle to be a successful businessman. And I've owned 5 different companies. All the way going back since I was a really young man in my teens. And I've always enjoyed the challenge of being a visionary and then implementing the vision. And in 2007, my wife passed away, and that all of a sudden made me redirect my thoughts. The economy then crashed. I got remarried, and I lost, the customers that were committed to projects. They couldn't do it anymore. And so an individual by the name of Dave Anderson communicated with me, and he wanted to retire from education, North Salem High School, and he called me up and said, hey, can you use your network to try and find somebody for my replacement? So with all those things happening, I just said, well, I'll go down and check you out. And I always liked the teaching aspect. And so I fell in love in a greedy way. I wanted to have these students that I was seeing was pretty bright to become future employees. And I didn't think that, teaching probably was all that difficult. And so I could probably do both at the same time. Well, I was very naive. And I found out that these kids that had very little direction, education really wasn't overly concerned with kids that weren't going to college. And it's like, well, what are you going to do with a high percentage of the students that go to this high school? And so it was like they won me over. And then the industry, the woods industry said, as I told my story, I still remember the Craig Tool Company here, and 7 years ago now, or 6 years ago, he said, Dean, how can we help? And they said, you're crazy. You gave up a company you've worked all your life for? And I go, well, I guess so. And they said, well, what can we send you? I said, send me any defective product you have. And I got home. There was a truck that came, and they gave me every product they manufactured. And it was like, wow, this was another eye-opening aspect of education. And I go, well, maybe others would want to be helpful. So people started supporting this program, and it grew and grew and grew. And all of a sudden, we were in a situation where we went from having not enough kids to having over 258 students a day, and with a 500-kid waiting list. And then the industry says, you're doing something different, because your kids are going into the job market. And because I was bringing business people into the classrooms, and I was bringing manufacturers into the classroom, and kids were kind of going like, well, we have never been important. Now these people are coming from all over the country, and they're like, they're not interested in Mr. Madsen, they're interested in us. Because the emphasis is always do what's good for kids, and then everything will go well. And so then we got nominated for this national award, and we got beat by the Bloom company, the Blum Hinge company. And that's like, geez, are you kidding me? How could we compete against that? And so then they nominated us again, and we won in 2013. And that sort of changed everything. And the program kept sort of growing, but the district that I worked for, there was no more room to grow. And so I either had to like retire out and just kind of like, you know, I wanted to help more students. I wanted to give them more, because when you look into the eyes of those students and you say, Mr. Matson, I can't get into your program, there's not enough room. It's like, well, how do you decide who gets in and who gets out? And all these students need opportunities like this. So then the situation arose where the only way I could expand this program throughout the country is to leave North Salem High School. And that's where, you know, Tim Kistler comes in, and he could share with you a little bit about, you know, what that was happening, because I didn't want to leave Oregon. I didn't want to leave my family. I didn't want to leave my lovely wife, Rosemary. And I did not want to be going to other states, and because that's just not what I wanted to do. But then I was challenged with the fact that, well, if you don't do it, who is? And then Mr. Kistler comes from Peyton School District and comes out and sees me, and maybe he would like to share that story.
I'll go back a ways. As being superintendent now 13 years at the Peyton School District, one of the things that when I became superintendent, we wanted to give kids alternate routes. And we were looking at wood programs, we were looking at auto programs, we were looking at many different types of programs to put into our school to allow kids to expand what they were doing. Most of our kids, 75–80%, go to college, but we know that we were missing some students and that we weren't helping them getting into the workforce, moving into maybe owning their own business. So the problem we were running into in the beginning is that we would see different programs, but we didn't have a facility. We didn't have a building to put them in. And most of the companies that we went and spoke to said we'd be more than willing to fill your shop with the machines, but you have to build the building. Our school went through a quick growth program. We were able to build a new high school, but we're still using our older facility as a junior high. Economy hit, so we moved the junior high school together into the new facility, and our old facility just went dormant for a while. Because of the economy, no one was willing to help us out with any type of machinery. One of my board members is a woodworker, cabinet maker. He goes throughout the states and goes to some high-line hotels and puts cabinets inside the hotels. He was reading the FDMC magazine and said, "Tim, you need to check this out." So I looked into it. I gave Mr. Matson a call, knowing he's extremely busy, but I thought I'd give him a call. And one day I was following up on my phone call, and I caught him in the office. Excuse me. And as I was asking him a question, he was very forthright and said, "I've got plenty of people, or many people coming. I've got classes to teach. I've got colleges that are coming to visit. I've got manufacturers coming to sell me product. I really don't have time to help you out with the curriculum. I don't have time to help you out with these things." And I understood that. So I asked him if I could come visit, because at least if I came visit, he was gracious enough to say, if you want to copy some stuff, if you want to take it and copy, have every right to do, but he didn't have the time. He doesn't have the help to do so. So I flew out and visited him just before spring break 2014. So in visiting, I was able to talk to the students, talk to the volunteers who were with him, and caught at least an idea of what that program was, to say, well, this is something that we're really looking into. So after coming back and talking to my school board, I asked him if I could hire Mr. Matson, at least as a consultant, to come out to Peyton to say, is this a program? Is my building something that could be turned into what you have? So as I took them through the facility, the discussion just became, wow, wouldn't this be a great type of program to be able to go into schools that have been dormant, recreate a woods manufacturing type program similar to what Mr. Madsen was running. And that conversation just grew and grew. Took Mr. Madsen to several of my board members and kind of said, Mr. Madsen was telling him, here's what I saw. Here's what I think you can do. Well, my board president and I are fairly close, and we talk quite often. He took me aside and said, Tim, can we offer him a job? Which took me back a little bit because I'm not used to on the spot doing something like that. I thought it'd be a great idea. So Mr. Frobeater, my board president, basically went to Mr. Madsen and said, what would it take to get you here? So that was just a beginning of a development of a relationship that we went back and forth, talked about what I felt that I could do with the school, what Mr. Madsen could do with bringing the program in, and it just seemed to be an excellent fit for what we feel that would be good for the Peyton students as well as future students throughout the states. August 17th, our students will be walking through the doors, anxiously looking for Mr. Madsen to teach them. We're having an open house. We've talked to many of our exclusive partners and our partners with our program to say, it seems that there will be several people in our area on August 25th. We'd like to have an open house. One, to thank some of the partners to be able, say thank you so much for what you've done for us so far. But the other portion is to get the word out to our community and the wood business community and even some of my fellow school districts to come in and see what we're starting and what we're developing. We're a small rural school, and it's kind of one of those Missouri things, really kind of show me that this is going to happen. I think once they see the room, once they see the equipment, it's going to be an eye-opener for really what's out there, and then allow some of our partners to say, how important is this to them, so that they can tell everybody else.
That being said though, Tim, I'm impressed by the fact that you would have such a forward-looking board that they would embark on something like this. There aren't too many school boards that would that have that kind of forward-thinking mentality that would allow for this to happen.
I think that being a rural school does benefit us because as superintendent of a small district, I talk to everybody in the district. I talk to the cafeteria workers, I talk to the students, and so I'm around quite a bit. And it's very effective because as often as I talk to them, I talk to my board. So there's always this communication going back and forth. So this was no surprise as to what we were trying to do. And as we talked through this, they were already prepared. They knew what I was thinking of what we wanted to do. And they knew well enough to say, all of them are entrepreneurs. They have their own business, or they work for the, a person small business. And they know how important something like this is. So it really was just a great marriage of everything coming together at the right time to pull this together. But my board has been very supportive and, as you say, forward thinking as to say, this is the thing that's going to help us move forward.
I think if I can interject something here, what's been really amazing is, at the WIC conference, woodworking conference in Puerto Rico 2 years ago, it's like I stood up in front of that entire conference and said, okay, you've given me kind of the challenge of a national training center because your workforce is decimated, and you have now, you're getting, the economy's turning around and you're starting to get business, but you can't find employees. And so you've asked me to like consider this. So I put it back to the industry and said, but you have to do something. And so then we come follow up, and this past spring in San Antonio, Texas, at the WIC conference, and I says, okay, I've left North Salem High School. I've taken this really seriously. You are committed. Have committed in great ways to supporting this endeavor in Colorado. And what we learned was the woods industry did not want to donate cash. They wanted to do in-kind donations and supplies and so forth like that. And it was overwhelming. There was a letter waiting for me the first day I walked into Peyton schools from a large international supplier, and says, we want to take this even to a higher level. And so would you consider a partnership? And then as we went through that process with this large international wood manufacturing company, they said, would you consider exclusivity? And so we started like, what's that? What would that look like? Well, we want to be supportive of this education model wherever it might go into the public education. And we want to be able to have the opportunity of first right of refusal to say, we would like to put our technologies in there, or we don't care to right now. And what you've done, Dean, is you've allowed us as business people to donate the way we want to donate to public education. And that is that's that new model, and we're speaking on it at this conference. And that new model is that the donations are not donated actually to the school district. The equipment is loaned. That way, the equipment is changed out every 2 or 3 years or 5 years based upon technology. The school districts are not saddled with some old technology that they need to go out and get new. And industry will have a chance to come in and use the classroom as a platform. They can train their own staff in there. They can show the machines off and technologies off to the local customer base that might be, in this case, in the Denver, Colorado Springs marketplace. And so the partnership was that we suggested, and the industry sort of like said, this is what we want. We implemented those things. And so the results have been overwhelming. And so when we open in 3 weeks, almost the majority of everything in that classroom has been donated. And so we, as a person that's made such dramatic changes in his lifestyle, I guess, coming from Oregon to Colorado, it's given me a great deal of confidence that this is a good thing. To the school board and to Tim Kistler in coming to these national conferences, he gets to feel firsthand of what the dynamics is and how supportive the woods industry is and how much they are now willing to back this. So most of our donors only care about the students. They said, if this will help your students, Dean, we want to give it to you. They're not interested in anything else. Some are interested in branding. Some are interested in market exposure. Some are interested in testing materials and products. And in a classroom, this is a good place to do that. And so, Tim, I guess for me, we get done each day, and whether we're together or over the phone, we go, can you believe this? Is this really happening? And it's gotten to be contagious. And now all these public education organizations throughout this country are like wanting to see what this is going to be happening, because career technical education is no longer on the back burner. It's on the front burner with STEM and some of these other workforce development organizations that are like, they're pushing high schools to be able to do this. And so not only did Colorado commit to our high school program, they committed to the first National Training Center, which is for returning veterans, the Yellow Ribbon Program, which we hope to provide. It's for educators that need to be taught how to do the new model of career technical education. And we've also learned in the skills gap issue with talent in America right now, that a lot of our kids that went right from high school into industry, they failed because they didn't have the soft skills, they didn't have some of the maturity. And so now we were able to provide kind of that skills gap We're an organization, we can take those high school kids, put them in a training center, take them to a new level of technology, which industry is supporting wholeheartedly. We just have to find the facility in which to do that. But now Oregon State University comes alongside and says, we're going to build a new $60 million facility, and we'd like to put manufacturing in there, Dean, based upon your model, because now when kids go to the National Training Center, they can be offered career pathways. They can decide, okay, I need a little bit more maturing, so I'm going to stay at the training center. When they get through that program, then they could go into advanced education at an organization like Oregon State University or Pittsburgh State University, or they can just go directly into the marketplace and go, I want to go work for the partners that have been supportive in our classroom. They might go to work for an employer. They might go to work for a manufacturer. And so all of a sudden, students are like finding this wood organization and this woods industry. They're learning. It's exciting.
The plan, originally, as Mr. Matson and I sat down and discussed this, one thing that we want is that this National Training Center should be a follow-up to what the students are learning through their cabinetry 1, 2, and 3.
So a continuation of the curriculum.
Right. We would like to be part of that, but that's not the only piece, because we're looking at the finishing piece or the follow-up, but also, as Mr. Matson has spoken about, is the Yellow Ribbon Program. Those military, coming out of the military and trying to move into the civilian life, we could work with those to be able to create these skills. Older people or older young people, as you can say, to at least start a career or start something to where they can be trained the skill set, which, if we're looking at the long view of the National Training Center as to the technology piece, learning how to run a CNC router, how to run the edge bander, all these other things that they can learn, but also working with community college. As these students graduate high school, they may want to go into a skill set world, or they may want to go into the college, or they may want to do both. This would allow them to work through a junior college to be able to move forward to looking at, I can do both, or I want to move into one or the other. And then the final piece would also be, including with Oregon State or potentially Pittsburgh State, but also looking at potential some adult education. Because there's such a huge deficit in the workforce, we really want to try and grab anybody that is willing to come to learn to be able to move forward into this. So we're looking at January 2017 of starting this. Our main goal right now, August 17th, opening up for kids, but by January 17th, whether we build a building on our high school campus to where the kids can move right there, whether we move it closer to Colorado Springs to where we'd have a place to where we can reach more students with having the military bases right there in Colorado Springs, having more schools, having the junior colleges there would be more of a base to be able to draw students to be able to help them in that fashion. So right now the goal, January 2017, to have a building ready to go to teach the skills, but also some classroom work.
Styles, tool company, Craig Tools and Fasteners, Tiger Stop, Triton Power Tools, Time Savers Wood Sanders, Ironwood Machines, Bessie Clamps, Netterman Dust Extraction, Fast Cap Lean Solutions, 3M Abrasives, Columbia Forest Products, Kevin Notch Box Solutions, Blum Hardware, Belfab Downdraft Tables, and JLT Clamping Systems. 5 more were added just this week, so far yesterday, to that list. The list of just partners would be Barbeau Machinery, Elder Construction, JDS Multi-Router, William & Hussey Machine Company, Cabinet Vision Software, Grex Fasteners. Then becomes our education partners and publication partners, FDMC Publications, Woodworking Machine Industry Association, Oregon State University, Woodworking Career Alliance, Custom Source Woodworking, which is a large employer. Those are the lists that we have currently, plus, like I mentioned, a few others, and we are just extraordinarily grateful for that list.